For several days, I've been studying a video generation software so that I can make a kind of a 4 minute movie in an adventure story involving a character who carries a sword. And the story is in a swords and sorcery style. And what I want to do is to translate the text of the story into a foreign language and to use AI to present it in different ways as comprehension questions, as one line of Polish followed by one line of English, and so on throughout the story, using AI to grab most of the vocabulary of the story and to create example sentences. But for the example sentences, to not use a very wide pool of vocabulary because that just makes the challenge of learning vocabulary extra hard. I'm trying to get it to use a small pool of vocabulary when making the example sentences. And the idea is that rather than me move from exercise to exercise to exercise when studying a language, the idea is that I just stay with the one exercise until I can hear the story well with my ear, hear it in the other language, read it well, read the example sentences well, have the vocabulary in my memory really well. And this could take a really, really long time to do, really long time. But the idea is to stick with it rather than keep moving on to new exercises. The idea being that when I move on to new exercises, I forget a lot of what the first exercise was. And instead, when I am ready to move on to a second exercise, I will generate using AI a very similar story, using a very similar plot style, but it will be a different adventure using different vocabulary, probably a different outfit for the character, um, just different vocabulary, but at the same time, reuse of the essential vocabulary that one needs just to be able to tell a story in general, and reuse of a fraction of the vocabulary list that was forced into the story the first time round. So what I mean there is that after AI made the short story, I then gave AI a list of about 100 words, which I said, you have to force these words to fit into the story. And those 100 words come from a wider pool of 1,000 words. And next time the AI makes a new story, it still has to look at those 1,000 words and pick out 100 words from different word families like um, electronics, family, holiday, things like that, the sort of categories that you see when you do study a language. And in that way, there's a fair chance that some of the vocabulary of story one gets pulled out again and used in story two, but not a lot, just a sprinkling, just a little bit. And that's the idea, to keep going like that, to learn a language rather than to move from exercise to exercise, not really reusing language from previous exercises. That's the way books normally do it, just not really referring back to the old vocabulary. For instance, a dialogue about going to the post office would not be using that vocabulary in a dialogue about going on holiday. And my theory is that it it might be a lot better to have exercises that do have a lot in common, and that way to really reinforce vocabulary. There could also be a question and answer AI feature where a comprehension exercise conversation happens between me and the AI because it knows the text of the story. So I've had some success creating materials, and I'm still working on animating the story because, as well as being a text and as well as being audio, I also want it to be a video story so that I could watch the video while listening to a narrator and every now and then having the characters say lines as well. I think that would be a really interesting way to study.